foldable phones, and revolutionary products. This is MacVoices.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from MacVoices. Watch or listen to MacVoices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is MacVoices Live. It's Tuesday night. It's 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. We'd love to have you join us in the chat room on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. If you can't, we'll be here next Tuesday. Set a calendar reminder or whatever reminder you need to make sure you join us. We have some of our friends in the chat room already, and we're looking for more. So we hope that it's a full house tonight. So we have several topics to talk about. And so I'm just going to get right to it and introduce the panel, and then we'll go. Taking the screen as I always do. First up, Mr. David Ginsburg. David, welcome. You're muted, David.
Mute here. Good to be here, Chuck. And I'm glad we have another day here of hanging out and just recovering from a event this morning that I hosted for my company, 150 people, and I was the MC. So I'm fresh talking to everybody here. So,
were you wearing a tux?
No, actually I was wearing the same shirt.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know. You said MC. I thought maybe, you know.
Oh, I thought about
Hammer.
Yeah, I thought about it, but no.
Next up, Mr. Mark Fuccio. I'm not quite sure, Mark, what your background this week refers to.
I think if we discuss the articles that were put into the Slack list, it will become clear.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if we miss it, then just beat us over the head and explain it to us. Warren Sklar is here from his basement that looks like it's undergoing renovation. Warren, good to have you.
Yeah, no, during work, I decided to empty the contents of one of my backpacks to swap it out. I didn't remember that I didn't do it until I saw it on camera. So now I remember that it's like that. So I'll have to fix that. Good to be back. Life traveling, still can't taste or smell, but I feel okay otherwise.
Good.
That's about it. Yeah.
Warren, you can probably go to a junkyard and get like a rear view mirror off of something cheap, and then you can just put it there, and that way you'd know what's going on behind you.
Well, normally when I'm working, I don't need to know that, but that's true.
Just a thought.
Well, webcam is a more techie solution to it, so I just need to turn it on.
Hey, that's what you need, is webcams so you can see what's going on behind you. That's good. Mr. Jeff Gamet is here as well. Jeff, good to have you.
It's always great to be here with you, Chuck. And it's the high point of my Tuesday.
It's the high point of one of the high points of my week. Yeah, I'm with you there, Jeff. Last but absolutely not least, Mr. Jim Ray. Jim, welcome.
Hello, this is the highlight of my 5 to 6 o'clock hour on Tuesdays.
Well, hey, we'll take what we can get.
Something.
We'll take what we can get. Jim, just for the fun of it, you might want to check your mics. I'm not sure you're on the mic you want to be on.
Okay.
If you are, that it's not bad. It's just doesn't quite sound like the usual view.
It's my AirPods, so
okay, that's all right. It works. The first topic that I wanted to bring up tonight, I'm just kind of curious. I know we've touched on in the past, but it's been a long time, and I was reading different announcements that came out. I think from Samsung the last couple of weeks, and I've seen a few things that just made me want to revisit the concept of a foldable phone. Does anybody want a foldable phone? Does anybody see a big benefit to a foldable phone at this point?
What's not the benefit? Basically, if you had your iPhone, let's say, Dave, we like the big phones, the Maxes. Let's say we had something that was the size of the Maxes now, but you folded it open perfectly, and it was a perfect opening. that you can look at, and now you have two screens. What's wrong with having more screen real estate? Nothing. If it does more screen real estate without a size bump is what the goal is. And Samsung, nobody's really there yet because they're not.
Been junk.
I mean, so you still have screen limitations. The glass isn't really foldable, has this crease in there that we learned about. But imagine, X years from now, you had this iPhone in this shape, exactly in that shape, and then you take your fingers and you do that, and now you have two screens. And no seam, no issues, kind of ran like an iPad OS. Tell me what's wrong with it. I know it's bad now.
But that's an idea. That's
a goal.
That's not what's available today. So let's clarify the question.
We have to get there. I mean,
I would also
have to
like
get
a
there.
pony.
Yeah.
So again, let's
Guys,
clarify the question. Does
50
anyone
years
want
ago,
to
people would have said, I'd rather have a pony, when we talked about this thing, because, that's what happened. So I'm saying
A flying pony.
A flying pony.
my
Well,
point is we're not there yet, but we have to try to get there. And if they can come up with a device that's the same form factor as a current device that we have now, and it makes it into two screens magically perfectly, yes. Yeah. Why
All
not?
right. Mark, I want to ask you to clarify, I guess, what you're looking for clarification. But before I do, I want to welcome Guy Serle
No.
to the podcast. Guy,
Hi,
good to
Guy.
have you. Good to have you. This time on time.
Not really.
Okay. Well, last time you
It is
joined, just
good-
as
it
we
is
were
good to be
closing
here.
up. So yeah.
with all of my problems and issues.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, we
just
all
you.
have them.
You're the only one that
Yeah.
has them.
Yeah. Mark, you were asking, let's clarify the question. So what part do you want clarified?
Well, are you asking, does anyone want any of the Samsung phones that exist today versus Warren's idealized thing that may never, ever exist except in our collective imaginations?
That's a fair point, and I probably should have clarified. No, I'm not saying the Samsung phones, because if we wanted them, first of all, probably at least some of us would have them, or we'd be advocating for them to some degree. And I'm not sure that Warren's vision of the perfect, that perfect foldable phone will ever happen. Maybe it will.
We're close to it.
I guess sort of just the concept, and I guess the reason I ask it, we're talking about the small iPhone not being updated this time, and it led me to think, okay, and Brittany's not here, but Brittany I know is a big fan of the smallest iPhone she can get. But if you had a small iPhone that folded, then it would end up being something a little closer to what the rest of us have, or most of the rest of us have. And I think it's an interesting idea. I mean, I was working with it and thought, how would I hold that? If it's something that folds, unless it locks into place, how are you going to hold that? If it's big enough, you're not going to be able to palm it unless your hand is a pretty good size. Warren brought up an interesting comment. Why wouldn't you want two screens? Well, do you want two screens, or do you want one big screen?
Well, you have the
So,
option.
well-
The answer is you would have both. That's what they're trying to do. You have a small screen you can hold in your hand and do like an iPhone, and then you could sit down and you could do this and put it on in front of you and do that. Why wouldn't at a coffee shop?
Okay.
How many times am I at a coffee shop or somewhere looking at my phone, say, I wish I had my iPad with me?
How else are you going to do your screenplay?
Just
Jim, you were saying something, trying to get in there.
Well, I think, if Apple announced a folding phone, I'd probably be interested in looking at what they have, because, Apple probably not going to do it if it's junk. I'm not like holding my breath. I'm not like, oh my gosh, I need a folding phone. I'm kind of skeptical that it can be done reasonably, or that Apple ever would do it. And one reason, it's another thing to break. As far as possible, I think Warren said,
Points
why
of
not?
failure.
Yeah, so Warren said, why not? And I would say that is a possible, why not?
Apple can.
But I used to have, I still don't want to be without a phone for a while.
We had MacBooks without keyboards for 3 years, and we got through it.
But,
but-
nobody had that on their wish list, though.
Yeah. David?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going back to your question. Samsung's attempt at a foldable phone, we all know, crashed and burned when the first model came out. It was an absolute joke. Then you got Chuck's favorite company, Microsoft, who decides to come up with that piece of junk that they came up with I thought was the most ridiculous device I'd ever seen in my life. So a big giant thing that folded out, and you saw the seam. So there's the other bad attempt. So now you got Samsung here again, comes up with some more foldable phones. They're getting there, but they're nowhere near that, and they're overpriced. They're overpriced, and they're not worth what their intent is, because they're going to charge $2,000+ for a phone that not everybody's going to want.
It probably sucks batteries like crazy.
That too.
Notice I don't have one, Chuck. So
yeah,
that's your
Okay.
gauge. That I don't have a Samsung foldable phone, but yeah, they got better reviews. But
to go
a lot of money.
to look at Apple, I mean, we know Apple and how they are when it comes to looking at new designs, new ideas, fresh ideas. They got the design team always percolating, thinking about the next new thing. Is Apple looking at it? I'm sure they've thought of it. Is Apple going to come up with something in the next 2 years? It's possible. But I until it's perfected and those screens are 100% perfect, because with the way Apple designs things, if that phone is foldable and if it comes back to meet the two screens together, they want that to be perfect. They don't want the seam. You can almost make the seam invisible. And you want to be able to have a good experience. And yes, we all have many of us here have the Macs. And yeah, it would be nice that could fold and then come back, and then we have a nice full big screen. But I think we're a long way away with this technology, honestly.
Can
This sounds like
Can I bring up the notch real fast? I mean,
Well, no, just hang on, Warren.
yeah, okay.
Because I want to get Mark back in. He said he has some feedback from an actual foldable phone user.
Yeah, this is a fellow I know. Works at a Microsoft, Azure and cloud office
Azure,
reseller, and he had a choice of phones. This feedback dates from, I think, around May sometime. I saw him, I think, at a barbecue from another friend, a third friend, and he had the phone, and I asked him what he thought about it, and his first comment is, well, this was a company phone. I'm glad I didn't pay for this myself, and so I asked him, why is that? He said, well, he says, number one, it's heavy. He said, this is almost 10 ounces, so it's a really heavy device. And I asked, well, why is that? He said, well, for two reasons. Number one, it's got 3 screens, and then number two, it has all the batteries in order to drive all the 3 screens. He said most of the time you'll have it, it's folded, and it's folded. He says it's very, very thick. He says the benefit of having folded is the phone comes in, you can just reach and tap and see something on on that screen. He says to get the full screen you have to open it, and he did say, and it opens up, and you have these these hinges that again, add vertical height that he didn't like putting in a shirt pocket or a pants pocket or something. And he said, unless you open it fully, you're going to see that seam. And then the last thing he said, that only some of these Samsung apps would automatically take advantage of the full screen. For whatever reason, between them and their developers, you basically you wouldn't get you'd have 2 separate screens side by side, but you wouldn't have one large full screen. So his sense was, I'm glad I didn't pay for it. He says it's expensive because it has 3 separate screens and a lot of extra batteries. He said, he thinks it's a work in progress, but next time he had an opportunity to upgrade to a phone, he'll go back to a single screen type of model. And I think this goes to I think Jim's and Warren's point, which is we can imagine what a perfect phone is. But as David was saying, Apple's probably looking at it, and if they are, they have very high standards, and it just doesn't look like the implementation it will be technology available today. It will get over some of these real problems with these Samsung devices.
Interesting. So I honestly haven't thought about the battery consumption for 3 screens. 2's bad enough, but 3 would be kind of vicious. Jeff, you had some thoughts?
I do. I feel like right now we're in the multi-screen phone phase of phones being gimmicks and phones looking for a problem to solve. And for all of us to sit here and look at those and then say, well, Apple, could they bring out a foldable phone? Okay, we need to stop thinking about it in the sense of what we already have. Look back to when the iPhone came out. The smartphones of the day, you could get a BlackBerry, you could get a Treo, and there were a few other phones. Yeah. And they all were basically the same when you looked at them. You had your small screen, you had your chiclet keyboard, and that's how they worked. And then Apple comes along with the iPhone, and that completely changed how we look at the smartphone market. So I feel like if Apple were to ever come out with something that falls into the foldable phone, multi-screen phone, which I think is probably a better way to look at it if we're going to include Apple in this, the multi-screen phone market, what we're going to get is not like what we're seeing today. And when it comes out, we'll look at it and be like, oh, right. Why weren't we looking at the phone from this perspective before? And the answer is because we're not Apple making the big bucks that they make to come up with better ways to do things. So if Apple does come out with a multi-screen phone, it's not going to be like what we see today. And when it comes out, we'll probably all of us be ready to drop serious money on it, because when we see it, we'll be like, yeah, I get it now. This is what I needed.
I think that product will be some sort of Apple eyeglasses. If you really want, bigger screen, more immersive, I think that's what it's going to be.
And that's very possible.
Okay, so this is interesting. Let me pull the chat room in here. Claire has a lot of thoughts here on this one. When on the fence between a tablet and a phone, foldable phone, it's a decent concept if well done. As long as one side has a solid glass phone style screen, when in phone mode, it would be fine. Perhaps chunkiness or thickness is still an issue when we talked about that. Apple doing a folding phone. Now, this is interesting. Apple doing a folding phone is unlikely prior to adding touch or pen support to MacBooks or MacBook Air. I feel they need to make that step first. And finally, I don't expect Apple to eat into its own revenue of phones and tablets by combining the two just yet. Now, that's, I don't see this. I guess I could see a foldable phone maybe as a replacement for an iPad mini, if you really stretch it. But then that would require my regular large phone to unfold. And even then it wouldn't quite make a mini.
See, we're still thinking about a multi-screen iPhone in the same way. We need to stop thinking about it that way. Don't think of them as folding phones. Think of them as multi-screen phones. And then what can you do when you take away the restriction of we must have an hinge and we must have a screen that has a crease in it so it can fold in half? And my guess is that Apple is already going down that path where they're not limiting themselves by what we have as current designs today.
Okay.
Apple.
Go ahead, Jim.
Jeff was saying, people are looking for problems to solve with the phone, but I see it as more like Samsung, for example. Well, they're kind of what's left. They're looking for some way to make an inroad on Apple. And so they're basically doing stunts. That's kind of like a trick play in football.
Approach.
Let's try this, reverse circle around, whatever. Because Apple ain't going to do that. Maybe we can sneak up on them. Apple isn't like that. Apple is they're in the lead. They're in the commanding position. They don't need to try stunts like this. I don't think they're not going to follow unless certainly Samsung's got basically flop. I think I'm sure it's got all kinds of experiments, but probably got zillion experiments that we never ever hear about and never will. And the flip side is a need for journalists for clicks. So they like to write stories like this, so that people will click on them, and try not to click on them. I also think that this it almost smells of this is the way Apple can find out who leakers are. Let's leak something about a foldable phone and see where it shows up. I don't think there's any there, at least not in any kind of short term. I don't think even Tim Cook knows when a foldable phone from Apple will come out, if ever. I don't think it's on the roadmap.
Right.
Is it in the lab? Maybe, but not on the roadmap.
I would point out that's another different question. We started one question from who would want one. Now you're answering the question, Jim. Do you think Apple will create such a device? And I agree 110% with your analysis and comments.
Warren, you had one.
Just final thought is basically Apple, Samsung, Netflix, all these companies have one job is basically to put a screen in front of your face all the time, the easiest way as possible. And that is what they're trying to, that's their job, and that's business. So talking to hearing Mark actually. Well, first, Jeff, a problem that nobody's looking to solve. I don't agree with that either. I think again. If you're looking at screens, having an easier, bigger screen in front of you is a problem to solve. And Johnny Ives has been doing it, for years now, trying to get a nice screen in front of your eyes in the nicest way possible, and that's what they're trying to do. But I think Mark is, I think they're going to get AR, VR perfected ish, much closer to the possible of a foldable phone, only because of physics, right? So I think physics dictates that clear glass is not fully bendable like aluminum foil at this point yet. Or some kind of metal like that. It's like Star Trek where we went back in time to try to get clear steel or clear
transparent aluminum.
Transparent aluminum. So unless Kirk goes back in time and gives us a formula for clear, foldable material, then it might take time. So VR, I think, is going to be the best way to get the screen in front of your face. I still have questions about that too, because I have an Oculus and knowing wearing that all the time, and how do you get something so small to give you such a good, vision of what you need to say? So that's my thought.
Guy Serle, we haven't heard from you this evening.
Yeah, I'm working multiple problems here. Something Jeff said kind of resonated with me, and that was the comparison of smartphones that were around before the iPhone came out. And I started to think about that, and I think the problem is that Apple isn't the same company that they were in 2006, 2007. And while I'm sure we would all love to walk through their skunk works, they haven't really come out with a game-changing device in a long time. Certainly, there's been iterations of different devices. iPhones have gotten better. Certainly, iPads have gotten better. The only other thing I can think of that even comes close as far as new devices go are HomePods, and the first version of that kind of crashed and burned. HomePod minis were a big hit, but it's a Bluetooth speaker at the end of the day that ties into Apple services. We haven't seen anything truly innovating from Apple, or even really from most of the major tech companies in I think quite a long time. It's all been evolutionary instead of revolutionary, and I kind of wonder what's going to happen when they stop running out of ways to wag the dog and give us a better version of what we already have. So would Apple come out with a multi-screen phone? Maybe. Do they have the wherewithal and the vision to pull something like that off? I don't know if they do at this point.
Guy, I love what you're saying.
AirPods.
I was going to say watches, Jim. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the watch I think was a surprise. I don't think that they really. I think originally they thought the watch was just going to be a one-off for some people who might enjoy it in conjunction with their iPhones.
They weren't the first, by the way. There was.
They didn't have the first.
Yeah.
The owner of the first computer, or.
Right.
I'm not talking about the past. I'm talking about right now. Does Apple have the wherewithal to come out with a new communications device that is going to be radically different? And that's what we're really talking about. And we can sit here and talk about multiple screens and all the rest of that until the cows come home. But does Apple or really any of these tech companies have the wherewithal to come out with something that is truly going to blow the rest of the market away and become the next standard? I haven't seen it. I haven't heard anyone talking about it. And I don't know if they can do it.
Guy, you're on the total right path here, I think. And I'm so glad I was able to give you something that resonated because you just returned the favor. When we talked about the revolutionary change that Apple has made and that we haven't seen one in a while. We don't see those very often. And when we do, it's rare, very rarely in a market that they already exist. So we have the Macintosh as a revolutionary product. And then we go all the way up to the iMac before we have a revolutionary product. And that's our anomaly because that's when we have Apple making a revolutionary change in the same space. Then our next revolutionary change comes with the iPod.
Yep.
New space. Next revolutionary change comes with the iPhone. New space.
iTunes. Don't leave out iTunes.
Well, that's with that whole iPod mix. Yes. And so now, I think when we see the next revolutionary thing, we're all looking in the wrong place. Because we're looking at something that's revolutionary in the communication space where we already see Apple. And where they're going to give us a new revolutionary market changing thing, I don't think it's where we're looking. And I can't wait to see what it actually is. But I'm not worried about how long it's gone. Revolutionary products don't come along every couple of years. And so where we are now in the iPhone revolution, it's still kind of early.
I'm not following how we got from folding phone to revolutionary product. A folding phone is not a revolutionary product, in my opinion.
I agree completely.
It's a folding phone. I also disagree with the iMac as a revolutionary product.
I was going to say that.
Why? Because it's
a colorful
plastic.
computer.
It's clear plastic. What's revolutionary about
it's a
the
computer
iMac?
that doesn't look like something.
All right. Well, then let's take the iMac out of the mix. We go from Mac to iPod for the revolutionary, and look how long that took. And then we have a faster revolutionary iPhone or iPod to iPhone. So
what made it revolutionary? What made the iPod revolutionary? Because it wasn't the first MP3 player.
Apple doesn't do the first.
No,
Apple never does the first.
Right.
Yes, the revolutionary part was Apple changed how people are able to consume content on a mobile device. And when they did that, it triggered a change in what people wanted to carry, how they wanted to listen to music, and where they were going to get it.
Right,
And
but people were people like us were buying Rios and Diamonds
I was
before. Well, I
had one.
right.
But let me just.
I had
right,
one,
but let
and
me
those
just finish.
sucked compared to an iPod.
Exactly right. That's my point. So those were, maybe not hundreds of songs, but it held enough, and it
Like
did.
a dozen.
My point is, it did. It wasn't the first. What Apple did is what they do with a lot of things is make it personable and something that you don't hate and something that you want to use, and that's what they do. And that's what they did with the computer. That's what they did with the MP3 player. That's what they did with a phone. And that's what they did. That's what they're going to do with some of the other stuff that's coming along. That's what they did with the watch. That's
Thank
what they
you
did
for
with
the
headphones.
validation. Yes. Yes.
So-
Yeah, I mean, if we could allow me a chance to boil it down, to steal a tagline from BB Edit. It doesn't suck. That's Apple's great thing is it's the
It rips the llama's ass.
It
But the
touches
first
a large
iPod did
consumer
suck.
market that is
it was not a
painful.
great device.
Yes.
Which one?
No,
It was
no,
FireWire, which limited its availability to essentially
The iPod.
just Apple users, because there were very few people on the Windows side who had FireWire. The thing that made the iPod, where the iPod became revolutionary, was when iTunes was brought into the mix, and you had a way to manage all that content. And then Steve Jobs somehow managed to get all of these diverse, various content creators, especially on the audio side, to agree to sell their content digitally. They were all concerned about album sales at a time when LimeWire and all the pirate sites were eating their lunch. And basically, physical media was already in the death throes. And Apple came along with the iPod and for the audio side and said, okay, we're going to save you, and we're going to drag you kicking and screaming into the 21st century, whether you like it or not. And that's what they did. And when iTunes was paired with the iPod and they switched it out to USB, it became available not just to Apple users, but to everyone. And that became the gateway drug that brought so many people into the Apple universe that the next time around that they were looking to buy a computer, they were finally considering Apple instead of just buying the next Windows box that got a good review in Computer User Magazine.
The panel continued to discuss revolutionary products and foldable phones in the next edition of MacVoices. And we also touch on why an iPad is going to the moon for a surprising reason. That's all next time on MacVoices. I'm Chuck Joyner, and as always, thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.